All right, thanks, guys. We got a special guest coming up on Portal Palooza. Our next guest was a top 40 player nationally in the 2022 recruiting class. I heard he's one of Cooper Patagna's favorite players coming out of high school. But in his 2 seasons as a Clemson corner, he finished with 37 tackles, a 2 for loss, 9 PBUs, a sack, and an interception, plus a safety. Now he's ready for the next chapter of his college career. Now in Studio A, it's Toriano Pride.
Thank you so much, Grace. Yes, our number 10 player in the portal, number 1 player at the cornerback position. Toriano Pride is here. Thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling this morning?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to actually go back to what it was like when you were coming out of high school, because I feel like when you hit the portal, it's like the recruiting process starts all over again. So you ended up committing to Clemson. What were you looking to get out of your school, out of high school?
Just out of high school, just the love atmosphere. I moved down south. I'm a Midwest kid from St. Louis, Missouri. So just when I took the visits there, it was just loving. The coaches loved me, the players, the students there. And it just made me feel at home, and that's where I wanted to be at for my college experience.
And Carl, we talk all about, what you're able to provide as kind of a mentor to some of these players, and players are hitting you up all the time. Like, is this the right decision? What should I do? What was that conversation like initially with Toriano coming out of high school?
So when I go back to when Tori was going through the recruiting process, and we had experience with some of the older guys that came before him, it was 4 schools on the board at the time, and it was Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, and the University of Missouri. From my perspective as a high school coach, I felt like I made all my players do one thing. Everybody had to take at least one visit to the University of Missouri. I'm a strong believer as a high school coach that Tennessee kids should look at Tennessee first, that Missouri kids should look at Missouri. If you're from Texas, you should look at one of the Texas schools. I think that everything starts from a local standpoint first. And my thing to Tori through the process, when I was thinking about the 4 schools that were recruiting him, I favored more so Missouri and Ohio State because they had a tremendous history of recruiting kids from the city of St. Louis. We had a lot of kids who went to the Ohio State that had a lot of success. And I think that Coach Swinney and the staff did a tremendous job recruiting Toriano. It was also during the COVID year, so things were kind of weird a little bit. But when I think about recruiting, and I would say this to any high school coach or any player, I think it's important to send your kids to schools where there are relationships where they continuously recruit the city. Clemson is not a place that normally recruits out of St. Louis, so the relationships aren't as strong. We don't know them that well, and they don't know us that well. And so I had a little trepidation about it, but at the same time, it's not my job to make the decision. It's my job to support him in what he was deciding at the time.
Yeah, it sounds like that is exactly what did happen and what is currently happening now as you look for a fresh start. You had some good minutes there. I know you started against Wake Forest. You put up some good numbers at Clemson. So why the change of scenery? Why'd you hit the portal?
Just in high school, I was recruited heavily by Coach Brent Venables that's at Oklahoma. I just talked to him every single day, parents, my mom. And when my mom likes you, it's a big deal. So we just built that up. And then when I got there, and he had the home visit with us right before he left to Oklahoma, and then he ended up leaving. And I wanted to put my trust in the staff, and it was just a different, like, building a bond with them and the person that was recruiting me, instead of like going to the school, building it right then and there, instead of building it over time like me and Brent Venables did.
And I think, Emily, this is something that both players, coaches, and parents need to look at through the recruiting process. Brent Venables is from Kansas City. He's a legend in the state of Missouri and throughout the Midwest and Kansas. And he was primarily the one that was recruiting Toriano throughout the process. I can remember as I was coming to the in-home visit that night, that's when I got the call from one of our insiders on our staff that Brent Venables was most likely definitely going to Oklahoma. I actually pulled Venables to the side at that in-home visit and asked him, was he going to Oklahoma? Was it true? And to his credit, he said, they have not offered me the job yet, but if they give it to me, that I'm going to go to the University of Oklahoma. I think that Coach Swinney in that transition did a tremendous job communicating. I thought that Venables did a tremendous job trying to still keep Toriano and a bunch of other guys committed to Clemson, but there still is a slight disconnect when you take the coach who recruited you and who saw the value in your game out of the middle of the picture. And so once again, my antennas were up, but he was very committed to going to Clemson at that time. Him and his family, it's what they love to do. And they were very loyal to that situation. And I do think that Coach Swinney did an excellent job communicating the changes that were going to happen.
We hear about those connections that are made during the recruiting process. How important is it to continue to have those relationships for when, down the line you could, like you're doing now, change your mind on where you're going to school?
I feel those relationships are extremely important, especially for like blessed people and opportunities to go to big schools, because in the moment it's all about football, but after football is over, you're gonna need something to lean on when the ball deflates. So all the relationships and the bonds that you build and the recruitment, all the coaches that you meet, you don't really want to burn too many relationships, because that could be somebody you need in the future, or somebody you would like to talk to, or they're doing what you want to do and you might need feedback to get to where they're at. So I just feel like it's super important when you talk to people, new people.
Yeah, what is your advice for players who are making those relationships? Because we don't always see it. Sometimes bridges are burned during the recruiting process, and it is hard to go back. What would you tell them?
I think the key to it, and what I've told Toriano and the guys who played for me, is you want to treat everybody with a tremendous amount of respect, whether it's a school you want to go to or a school that you don't want to go to. There's coaches that you meet along the way that maybe at the moment they're not at a school that you're considering. Coaching change happens, and not at your dream school, then you have to play for them. So the way that you treat people is going to always matter significantly, not only in the recruiting process, but in any business you're in. And I don't care whether you are a college football coach or whether you're a school teacher or engineer. People genuinely treat people better that they like than people that they don't like. So you want to make sure that your attitude is on point at all times when you're dealing with college coaches.
And it's so interesting to get the perspective of a player who's going through it, because I'm sure there's so many things going on right now in terms of you're trying to finish up your semester at Clemson, you're trying to figure out what's next for you. So what are you looking for in that next program?
It's really just one word, one in bold letters, the opportunity, really. That's all to fulfill my dreams, I just need the opportunity. That's all. I could really just leave it at that, opportunity.
Just opportunity.
Yeah.
That's all you're looking for. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you take hold of that opportunity and where you're headed next. But thank you for heading in the studio with us and
no problem.
Giving us a behind-the-scenes look.
No problem. Thank you guys for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. All right, 24/7 Sports is the place for all things transfer portal. You can check out 247sports.com for everything you could possibly need. Wall-to-wall team coverage, recruiting rankings. That's right. We're still gearing up for signing day, but today is all about that last line transfer portal updates. And for more on that, let's head over to Studio B.
Thanks, Emily. That was really kind of Toriano, giving us a little insight into his transfer portal process. We played a little musical chairs here. Cooper Patagna now joining me and Josh Pate here in Studio B. Coop, you've watched quite a few of Toriano's film. What might another team be getting in him?
Well, a super versatile defender, guy that we love coming out of high school, East St. Louis. We ranked him number 40 player overall in 2022, number 6 corner. And the thing with Toriano is that he's a versatile athlete, but he checks all the boxes. Was a low 4.5 guy. He was 10.5 in the broad, had a great short shuttle at sub 4.1. So he can do everything there from an athletic standpoint. But I love the fact that he can play on the boundary. You can play him in the nickel as well. So here you see a little bit of his senior tape against St. John Bosco. I mean, this guy played really well against FAU, Wake Forest, 2 games that he started earlier in the season at Clemson. I love what he can do. I love his physical ability. I think he has a lot of technical maturation still left in his game. So this is a guy that I think, if he finds the right fit, he can come in, make an immediate impact. Reminds me a lot of Trent McDuffie, who we had at Washington, ended up being a first-round draft pick, now playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I love this guy, really good athlete, but a heady football player too.
You said something there. It sort of bleeds over into portal philosophy, but you said physical maturation. You talked in the future tense, as in it could still happen, as in he's not a fully developed player, which sort of flies in the face conventionally of how a lot of people were trained to look at recruiting versus college. Recruiting, you're all about what could be, you're projecting, but then it's like once a kid got to college, he's a finished product and we're going to talk about him as is. And in reality, that was never the case, but especially now that we have the portal being the thing that it is, you're talking about a philosophy in the walls of football complexes where you're still in that projection mentality. You're still in the idea of what is he versus what we could make him, which I'm not so sure the general public picks up on. I think the general public looks at transfer portal rankings, or they look at, we just got a guy from southeastern Louisiana State and he just kind of is what he is, but that's actually not the case.
Yeah, no, it's not. And that goes back to what we talk about all the time, projection versus production. And talking to a lot of guys who do this, directors of player personnel across the country, I mean, I think the production is still an important piece for guys like Toriano Pride. It's important that he played 2 games earlier in his career that they can go off and say, all right, this guy kind of fits what we want to do. But the philosophy of balancing, hey, what are we getting in high school? What are we getting in college? What's out there? What's available? The receivers right now, they're a dime a dozen right now. You can go out there and find a guy that's played a lot of games in the transfer portal. The positions that are really difficult to build through the transfer portal are offense and defensive line, right? We've talked a lot about Walter Nolan. The thing that makes Walter Nolan so special in this transfer portal cycle, he's one of one. He was Bear Alexander last year, right? How many guys like that hit the portal every cycle? So it goes to his advantage, not only from a financial standpoint, but somebody out there is going to spend a lot of money to get Walter Nolan on their team. So it's a lot of, I would say, balancing act on the scale a little bit. And even with the quarterbacks right now, you got Dante Moore, Aiden Childs, they're kind of in their own lane. And then you got guys like Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, Will Howard, guys that have been there, Kyle McCord, excuse me. So, yeah, a little of a balancing act right now.
Let me ask you this. So you're talking about how rare a commodity it is. It's a rare condition this day and age, if you will, to find quality O-linemen in the portal. And it almost seems like even at Pate State, if I needed a quarterback, I wouldn't freak out as much as if I needed a plug-and-play left tackle or I needed interior offensive line help. So when you talk to guys in different programs, and let's say you got one in need of a fairly high-level quarterback, but you got others who were Ohio State this past cycle, and they knew they needed help immediately along the offensive line, which need freaks people out anymore? Because it seems like quarterback would be that position, but quality quarterbacks look to be in more plentiful a supply even than quality linemen going in this thing.
Over 50% of quarterback starters in the FBS are from the transfer portal, right? So when you look at the offense and defensive line, you talk to guys around the country, that's where it is. It's a point of attack. You have to build organically through high school if you want a chance to compete for a national championship. There are 14 teams that took over 20-plus transfers this last year. 7 of them went above 500. The other 7 went below. The other stat that kind of pops out, you look at that, they're 5-31 against top 25 competition, right? So Deion Sanders came on the show a little bit earlier. This is a team that ranked 129th in sacks allowed. They were also last in the country in rushing. They have 1 commit on the offensive line who is a JUCO bounce back. To find these guys via the transfer portal in a oversaturated market is finding a needle in a haystack. We talk about Ohio State getting a Josh Simmons from San Diego State, right? We talk about maybe in Oregon going to get a Johnny Cornelius from Rhode Island. Those guys are the one of one. If you're somebody else that is not one of those blue blood programs, good luck trying to build a CFP contender through the transfer portal at the point of attack. So that's a really interesting dynamic that's going to be fun to follow.
By the way, Toriano Pride, not the only corner leaving Clemson. Sheridan Jones is graduating and Nate Wiggins is heading to the NFL. So Dabo might actually have to dip his toes into the transfer portal this year. Right now, Clemson, the only team besides service academies who recruits less in the portal.